Radio Nigeria, uplifting the people and uniting the nation.
The time is 10 o'clock. Good morning and welcome to another edition of your Good Governance and Public Accountability Program. Have your say on the network service of Radio Nigeria. My name is Olayemi Daniel, welcoming you on board. Thanks for joining us. One sector adversely affected by the COVID-19 pandemic is the educational sector. This is because of the conventional global system of education where children gather in assembly grounds, classrooms and lecture halls to take lessons. To check the spread of the pandemic, schools were shut down until only recently when exiting students at various educational levels were asked to resume to take their exams under strict compliance to the guidelines on checking further spread of COVID-19. What is the fate of education as the pandemic still persists? Our guest to provide answers to these questions and discuss other issues affecting the nation's education sector today is the Honorable Minister of State for Education, Mr. Chukwuemeka Nwajiuba. Sir, it's a pleasure to have you on the program.
Thank you. Good morning, fellow Nigerians.
Honorable Minister, you've spoken about the WAEC exam so much that some Nigerians even think that you yourself will be sitting for the exams. What do you have to say about this?
Thank you very much. And I once more start with thanking my fellow Nigerian citizens for appreciating and working with the federal government on this pro.
Okay, we'll get to talk more anyway.
Yes.
That was just to break the ice and to get to lighten up a bit.
Yeah.
Now, for Nigerians, you can join the conversation on our live streaming. That is on www.facebook.com/Radio Nigeria Network or simply Radio Nigeria. Just search the website. And the lines to call to be part of the conversation is 0807 622-6771. Once again, the line to call to be part of the conversation this morning is 0807 622-6771. The second line is 0705 149 3324. Once again, second line is 0705 149 3324. Once again, very slowly, 0807 622-6771 and 0705 149 3324. For SMS and WhatsApp only, send to 0705 864 2473. Once again, for WhatsApp and SMS only, send to 0705 864 2473. Please remember to turn down the volume of your radio set To avoid a holdback, make your contributions short and straight to the point. Thank you very much once again, Nigerians, for joining us on the program. Now, to the business of the day. Honorable Minister, the timetable for the final examination for exiting students is already out. How prepared are the schools to have their candidates sit for the examination and ensure that everyone is safe?
Thank you again for having me. We have just commenced the assessment processes since the beginning of August. From the 3rd of August, we've gone around all the schools to assess their readiness to take in students who are returning. That was being done. Most states are now open. All the schools are practically open in all the states now. As at Monday, I just verified a few more on the 10th. So we now have almost every center ready to run. We have said different places that I want to thank Nigerians who have helped make this happen, because in spite of the state of the economy, Nigerians have reached into their own pockets. The state governments have done considerably the more they can. Private schools have done exceedingly well to prepare their venues and make sure that everybody is in compliance with the guidelines we issued in July ahead of our reopening. Most of the items that we enumerated or listed out for everybody to deal with, they have all complied. I'm also further enthused by the preparedness of our students. Many of the students I have interacted with, and well, I've not interacted with a lot, but the few I've interacted with showed extreme enthusiasm at returning back to school. They showed preparedness. They were engaged in their revisions. They've been at this for quite a bit. We also, at the Ministry of Education, have conducted a survey at the end of July to find out how much our students really did during the period of the lockdown. We are satisfied that a relatively high percentage, or nearly 72%, had actually been working on it somewhat. Many of them didn't have all the tools that are necessary to, and even those who had some of the networking tools didn't have access to as much power or as much internet broadband base as they would have wanted. But we have the WAEC Connect, which had been provided for those who had the exit classes who had gone ahead to do this. So many of them had used many of those resources, and we've been assisted heavily by the schools, because UBEC and there's a commission in the part of the ministry called UBEC, and it liaises with the state UBECs, what we call the SUBEPs, and they all have made provisions helping students to prepare. So when you ask me how prepared we are, I think we are sufficiently prepared. We may not be running at 100%, but I think we're somewhere around 80-something%. I think in the next 1 week, those who need to step up some of their work would have done so, because effectively we will commence on the 17th, which is Monday, in about 4 days' time.
So we're talking about these schools now, government-owned, have been decontaminated. All those efforts have been made already. Can we say that now?
Yes, the Ministry of Environment and the Federal Ministry of Environment and the state governments have done quite a bit with re-preparing the schools and repositioning them for students to return. Some of these places have been on lockdown for maybe like 4 months, 5 months. So really, they need to be cleaned up, and that's been done. Like I said, even private schools have done very well, because we sent out inspection teams. Because in every state, we have a directorate, a Federal Ministry of Education directorate for quality assurance, and they've done an extensive work of going around and reporting back to us as to the preparedness for each school. Those that didn't, we've asked them not to take it, and we've assured that until they do, they won't let students do it.
Okay. Now let's talk about, before now, there was a lot of brouhaha on the social media on and back and forth on if the schools are resuming, if they want to resume, what to do. Reason for
I think it was actually appreciation of the way we communicated our position. We never said we don't want our students to resume. We said, and we were emphatic, and we are still emphatic that the first role of government is the safety of lives of its citizens, and that's why we were elected. We were elected as a social democrat. We are social democrats by our constitution as APC, and we are completely responsive to people. So Chapter 2 of our Constitution of the Federal Republic says that the objective of the first priority of government is the security of the life of its citizens. Now, security does not just end with when you're fighting Boko Haram. That's not just security. Security pertains to your health security, and that's the first reason that government shutting down schools, because they were seen at the time as and still known to be part of the means where the coronavirus can be propagated. So we then decided that before the students will return to school at any time, whether for WAEC, whether for any reason, they have to be safe.
Okay. Let's talk about the long period now. We're talking about several months of backlog of the syllabus, covering the syllabus, the academic aspect now. What plans do you have to cover for the lost time?
Well, you need to,
even after we finish with the exiting students, I know that's what we.
Well, you need to appreciate that we drew up all these the syllable so that everybody can from there use that to dematerialize a curriculum. A syllable speaks to a curriculum. In other words, when you draft a syllable, you're trying to achieve something that has already been worked into a curriculum. Therefore, remember we stopped at the end of second term. So a lot of the work that was supposed to be done for the year had actually commenced. These teachers are supposedly going to go ahead and continue to do this, and that's what we've provided on all the online platforms we've created, all the radio station transmissions, all the TV transmissions, what we've been transmitting is all that we have in the syllable as it relates to the curriculum for a particular subject. And each time, whether it's an expert teacher, whether it's a broadcast medium, all of that has been directed at making sure that the students imbibe what it is that we have provided in those syllables. So at any time you get on the course, you're learning something.
Okay, let's talk about education at the tertiary level now. There's a lot of contemplation on what will happen at that level. At this level, we know we're talking about young adults who can take necessary precautions and follow the protocols and so on. So what is the plan at that level of education? When do we see our university or students in our tertiary institutions resume school?
The school environment is congregational by its nature. The coronavirus transmits by congregational activity. And that is why social distancing on its own appears to be one of the key elements again. Now, you can't be talking about social distancing and calling for congregational at the same time. It's a misnomer in itself. So what we're going to try to do is, yes, when we finish with the exit classes, they will need to migrate into these universities. I think so. And so we have to open the universities at some point, because that's where everybody else is going to. We even have exit people, those who are exiting the tertiary institutions, who need to be exited as well. Now, we understand that whatever that means and however that works, it has to be in a way that we make it possible for our students to be safe. Right now, we are not satisfied that any congregation of students, whether they be of university level or any without adequate provisions, will be proper at this time. And we can't choose in the university system which courses to reopen and which courses ought not to be reopened. We can't also choose which departments would behave, or which courses. Do we stop the GS courses where you have the largest number of people, or do we have ask lecturers to take on sections of their work and their interaction with their students? We are working on a couple of modules which wish to open them up. And maybe from here, I'm leaving for a meeting with a committee of selected private universities who have come in to see me.
So decisions will be taken on what to do next.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that will be made public after
a couple of days, as soon as we're meeting as a group, and we're going to make sure that whatever we come up with, we communicate with the rest of Nigerians.
Now, about the Academic Staff Union of Universities, we know even before the pandemic, there were one or two issues they've been raising, strikes here and there and so on. And now, the long-standing issue of allowances and other demands seem to be overwhelming or seem to be tough on the government, the federal government now. Where are we now on the situation? Are we going to have them ready to continue work?
I actually always say to fellow Nigerians to be reminded that ASU members are actually quite patriotic in their understanding. They actually mean well. But like all things, what you mean and how you mean it may not be how it actually comes out. You may have a good intention, but it's not necessarily translating. Yes, they will. The request that they've made, there are quite a few of them. One of them, cardinal of which, is to review the 2009 agreement, because they also have said that the 2009 agreement hasn't worked exactly as it was supposed to work. So there is need to review it. Now, some aspects of the 2009 agreement entail we all having to cough out an agreed sum to fund the universities. And in funding the universities, it was important that in funding the universities, those monies that were pledged by the federal government of Nigeria to be made available to them at all times were made available. However, nobody had contextualized a situation where Nigeria didn't have the money to spend. Because if Nigeria agrees to spend money but does not have the money to spend, what then would then be happening to ASU? So while ASU may mean well, some of the things that we are contracted to be done, like amount of money to be released to universities in every year, are not actually as available as they could have been. It led to a couple of problems in the early parts. We've had some understanding with them, and we're still suing for understanding with ASU. We believe that it is in the common interest of the students, the practitioners of the university system, and us as regulators to be able to return to schools peacefully. There is nothing that ASU says that is wrong. No. What is not proper is probably our ability to meet with them. And it will be this. There are some things that you think that are ideal. Those things should happen. Yes, but if you don't have the resource, nor the circumstance that permits them, it may not necessarily work out in those ways. So, but if you want to deal with specific items in the 2009 agreement or specific demands of ASU, like the IPPI's issue, those are specific, and there are ways around them. And we think that ASU should come to some sort of understanding of what it is government wants to achieve, how government wants to run its a government. It may be at variance at what you believe, but then that's why they are elected as a government, and this is the direction they want to take the country. It's a democratic institution. It's not government is not a military regime, and so you even if you want to impose even if ASU has in all authority knows all the right things to do and insist on doing them, and it's not possible to do them, then you still work with the country. That's how a country works in a democracy. Yeah.
Okay, let's now. Yesterday, the University of Lagos community was awakened to the news of the sack of the Vice Chancellor, and this news has continued to be in the media. There's some controversy. He's saying he remains the Vice Chancellor. How appropriate is this action, and what exactly is the situation there in UNILAG?
Thank you very much. You know, like all universities in Nigeria, each university is set up by its own law. There's a University of Lagos law. The president of the country, President Muhammad Buhari, is a visitor to the university, and by his under the powers conferred on him by law, he has appointed a council to represent him there. When they take an action that you are not in agreement with, they will revert to us. We are currently have asked the Nigerian Universities Commission to immediately. I think this is something that happened yesterday. And once we got this information, we've asked the Executive Secretary of the Nigerian Universities Commission, Professor Rashid, to get in touch with the council and review what they have done in case there are if they've acted ultra-virus themselves or non-conformity with whatever the situation may be. This is not in Dutsima, Katsina State. You will recall in 2007 or 2017, sorry, the Federal University at Dutsima had a similar occurrence where the council asked the vice chancellor to leave. Council has that kind of powers, but it has to be done within a framework that is understandable. But right now, we're not going to take a position yet on one way or the other until we get a report from our council. We can't just hear it in the newspaper and we'll react based on a storyline or anything. Government does not work like that. Government works with a set of memos that have been prepared, the legal framework for which actions were taken, what actually led, and what the actual complaints are. Because right now, you may be hearing complaints, I don't like it, or I like it, or as the case may be. Those are still preliminary matters. So, but once we get the National Universities Commission to review this, they will advise the ministry. Then the ministry will, on behalf of the president, take it.
Honourable Minister, forgive me for asking, but does it mean that the Council of UNILAG did not officially inform the ministry or the minister or the relevant authority or the relevant office on their actions concerning the vice chancellor?
That's what I'm saying. You just said this happened yesterday, right? Okay. So the right thing for them, they will communicate. They will notify us, and maybe they will write a letter from their registrar, and the registrar will then communicate the ministry. Then the ministry would, if he has a count, if there's now a complaint from somewhere, it will now give that same complaint to us. That same complaint will come to us. But right now, like I said, what the position the ministry would take is to actually ask his relevant agency, which in this case is the Nigerian Universities Commission, to then quickly give us their own position on the matter.
Okay. There's another matter. Forgive me for taking us back a bit. We've talked about our schools resuming now, but how about the school feeding program? What is being done to ensure that caterers at that level follow these guidelines and ensure that what children consume in the schools are safe and properly prepared to avoid spread of the pandemic, COVID-19?
Well, you have to look at what it is that our government is doing. Our government, when we came into power in 2015, immediately started work on this as part of the special intervention programs. School feeding is just a component part. There are so many other parts of it. The Empower, the GP, all school money, trader money, all of those are social intervention programs, all of them. Now, but the school feeding program is very special, really, really special, because it works to a lot of things around Nigeria. And the way this was domiciled immediately we came to power in 2015 in the office of the vice president. And the vice president, who's been very passionate about this and trying to reflect the passion of Mr. President, then went ahead to appoint a team around them with an SDG team and SA on SIP. All of these people gathered and did a terrific work. They set out the ground rules. They enumerated the schools. They enumerated students. That's a lot of work. Then they began the actual cost of appointing kitchens around these institutions, because for almost every 100 students, you have to provide the meals. So, and then costed each of the meals. When you finish costing the meals, then they will have to look at farmers in the area and aggregate the kind of products that are in that area. And because there's no point putting roasted lamb chop when there is no lamb in the area. So important is to aggregate. So they now began the process of aggregating farmers, so that those who produce eggs in the area, if you look at the Kaduna model, for instance, you see how those who aggregate the farm produce around the area. So all of that are tiered, and the vice president's office did a terrific work with that, and it's been running. Now when we won a second term, we now decided that the president decided that it was best to bring all of these programs along with all other programs that are similar into what we call the Humanitarian Affairs Ministry, because these are actually humanitarian. This is the first government ever to constitute its humanitarian activities into a ministry for proper guidance and proper reporting, because there'll be a line with which to bring these matters to the Federal Executive Council. This is one of the most terrific decisions the government's made and setting this out. Now, what this has enabled that ministry to do is to do this thing in a more formatted and more regulated manner, not through advisors and through committees. Okay. Now it's a government affair. It's like a parastal office, so it can be measured by the same rules. So now we brought it into where it can be worked out properly. So every school now, once they resume, because this was going on before there was this intervention by this coronavirus.
Yes.
And while in the coronavirus, just before Corona set in March, there had been food already ordered for the next quarter. So when the schools now left, the woman, the lady at the Ministry of Humanitarian was forced to start distributing the food in raw form to them, because there's nothing else we could do with the food that already be, and
it could go to waste.
And it could go away. So we started going to the homes using the register of students in the particular classes, so that you aggregate them and get to their families. You aggregate them and you get to their families. So with the help of the school management authorities around the states, whether it's in FCT or in Lagos or in all the other far-flung states, you use this school management to try to reach out to those homes and get this combination of food, because it's not just one meal, it's a couple of meals. So you give them the pack. Even though we used to give them in school one plate a day, now when they were going to be given, they're going to be given rations for the next couple of weeks at the same time, because that was what was ordered, and there's no point leaving them in our warehouses since they are already been delivered.
Okay. All right. If you're just joining us, we've been speaking with the Honorable Minister of State for Education, Mr. Chukwuemeka Nwajiuba, on the fate of the nation's education sector as the COVID-19 pandemic persists. Don't forget, join the conversation. We're streaming live on www.facebook.com/Radio Nigeria Network, or simply search the Radio Nigeria website. And don't forget, you can also be part of the conversation. Have your say. The lines to call are 0807 622 6771 and 0705 149 3324. You can also join us by sending SMS and WhatsApp only to 0705 864 2473. Please remember the ground rules. Turn down the volume of your radio set to avoid a holdback. Make your contributions short and straight to the point. When we come back, we'll talk of infrastructure in tertiary institutions. We'll go for a short break. Stay with us.
Radio Nigeria, uplifting the people and uniting the nation.
The National Center for Disease Control has informed me that a large proportion of new infections are now occurring in our communities through person-to-person contacts. So we must pay attention to the danger of close contact between person to person. At this point, I will remind all Nigerians to continue to take responsibility for the recommended measures to prevent transmission, including maintaining physical distancing, good personal hygiene, and staying at home.
Let's have some peace. Nigerians are peace-loving and hard-working people.
And countries only develop and grow when there is peace and stability.
There are different kinds of problems in every society, and so in every country.
If there are problems here, Nigeria is not an exception.
There is no society, no country where violence and public disorder has solved that problem.
No matter the problem, no matter the issue.
Let us sit down like brothers and sisters. Use dialogue to resolve the problems.
Remember, you have to give account of every action you take, if not here on earth, then before your creator.
Please let us work together for a peaceful Nigeria. Let us work together. Nigeria will be great. As the roar of a lion reverberates across the animal kingdom, so does the news in the network service of Radio Nigeria reach all the nooks and crannies of Nigeria and beyond. Nigeria, the strength of a lion in every newscast.
Radio Nigeria, uplifting the people and uniting the nation.
You're on to the network service of Radio Nigeria, and the program is Have Your Say. We have been speaking with the Honorable Minister of State for Education, Mr. Chukwuemeka Nwajiuba, on the fate of the nation's educational sector as the COVID-19 pandemic continues to persist. We hope things get better. Like we said earlier, the lines to call to be part of the conversation are 0807 622 6771 and 0705 149 3324. Don't forget, in case if you can't get to us because there are too many calls coming at the same time, you can reach us on 0705 864 2473. Yes, we have a first caller. Good morning. Tell us who you are and where you're calling from.
Good morning.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, please. We can hear you. Tell us your name and your location,
This is
please.
Bishop Iso from Sabugdaura in Edo State.
Good morning, Bishop. Please go ahead.
I greet you. I greet the Honorable Minister for Education there. They
Yes,
have spoken very well.
yes.
I want to compare the private schools and the public schools, especially in my own area here. What about there is that at the rural area, the private schools tend to really be more ready than the public schools. I think the Association of Private School Owners, they did a lot of work by ensuring that they provided some help for the private school owners. And one would have expected that the Nigerian Union of Teachers and Anchor should equally have done something like that. Because it's not everything you really rely on government. Government has its own role to play. The individuals too also have their own role to play. Secondly, this idea of the university, talking of having one credit or the other, I want to appeal to the university lecturers that this COVID-19 has taught us so many lessons. It has given us so much problem, so much delay, that they should please settle down. Let them ensure that as the government will tell them to open schools for the final year students, that they should not talk of strike at all. Let the final year students go there, write their exams. Thereafter, they can now start negotiations.
All right.
Because the students have suffered too much. They should not suffer further again.
All right, please
Thank
round
you.
off.
God bless all of
All
you.
right, thank you very much, Bishop Isong. Hello, tell us who you are and your location, and go ahead, please.
Good morning.
Yes, good morning.
Yes, am I on to Radio Nigeria?
Yes, please, you are.
Yeah, okay.
Go ahead, we can hear you. The Honorable Minister can hear you as well.
Okay. My name is Mande Bunde Emmanuel. I'm
Peter
calling you from
Emmanuel.
Lafia
Okay.
in National State.
All right, go ahead, please.
Yes, Honorable Minister, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
I want to appreciate you because of the fact that you have been very instrumental, especially in giving direction and ensuring that members of the public are carried along, especially during this pandemic. Of course, the truth of the matter is that the future of every country lies in the children and youth who are predominantly across levels. We should urge you to not rush straight into the reopening of schools by ensuring that the necessary protocols were being put in place. Honorable Minister, not saying that we still have a lot of challenges. I really talk about the issue of e-learning. I want to harp on it
E-learning.
that
Okay.
this COVID-19 should be an eye-opener to the Nigerian government, especially in the area of network coverage. You go to some rural areas, you discover you don't have the proper network coverage there. So it becomes very difficult for them to even. So I call on the federal government to ensure that there is network coverage across the breadth of the inclusion of.
All right, Peter Emmanuel, we seem not to be hearing you anymore, but I think you've made your point. The need to revive e-learning. Yes, let's take the next caller, then the Honorable Minister will respond. Hello, tell us who you are and your location. Emo.
calling from Plateau State.
Plateau State, Mancham. Go ahead, please.
Right. Yeah, I want to start by thanking the Honorable Minister for Education. Yes, they are doing their best to see that all our children are safe. But the issue there is that my problem now is the problem of the tertiary institution. When the school will resume. Because right now, students are not at home. They are going to exile looking for money. Because if they resume the school now, I don't think parents are going to suffer. So I don't know what they are they going to resume the school this year or next year?
Resumption, school resumption. Hello? You're talking of school resumption now?
Yeah, sir.
Oh, okay.
Tertiary institution.
Okay, have you been listening? The Honorable Minister talked about that earlier, that decisions have been made. Anyway, thank you for your contribution. All the same, he will still react to issues raised. Hello? Your name and location, please.
Lawrence.
Yes, good morning.
Lagos.
Yes, please. Your name?
Lawrence, Lagos. L for law.
Lawrence.
Lagos.
Lagos.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead, please. You're calling from where?
Lagos. Lagos.
Lagos. Oh, good. Okay, go ahead, please.
Good morning, Honorable Minister.
Good morning, Oga Lawrence. How are you, sir?
You've done a great job with your colleagues in the Presidential Task Force.
Thank you very much, sir.
Please, is it possible for these meetings to be including the grassroots stakeholders? If United Kingdom could not have all their rural areas covered using the virtual learning, your guess is as good as mine. What will happen in Nigeria?
The need to involve the grassroots in decision taking, in decision making. Hello?
Again,
Okay.
is it not possible?
Hello, good morning.
Hello?
It's,
Okay.
I don't know, calling from
We
Jos.
lost Lawrence
Good
line there.
morning,
Okay.
Honorable Minister.
Good
I
morning,
must
ma'am.
commend you for making it possible for our students to, the existing students to write WAEC. Because I was just wondering, it would have been a disaster if Nigeria pulled out of writing WAEC, being the giant of Africa. COVID-19, as far as I'm concerned, has exposed the deplorable state of our educational system. It is a blessing in disguise. It will now make all stakeholders to fix the educational sector. I'm very optimistic that once the guidelines are observed, they will write the exams without us having any spike. Schools where learning has been taking place won't have much problem. Because as at the time the schools were shut around March or so, they were about to write more. The problem is that most of the schools, learning was not taking place, especially the public schools. Let's tell ourselves the truth. That's the problem. You see, that's the issue. Okay. Now and again, we talked about the school feeding program. That school feeding program, I'm against it. I'm not against it, but I don't like the idea of people being fed without roofs over their head and all that. And again, it's selective. Up till now, it's the same number of students that is being fed. Many of them are not being fed. Those pupils in a public school, for an intervention like this, it should have been comprehensive. All the pupils in that particular category in public schools should have been fed. So people that are not fed, how will you want them to recite the national anthem or sing the national anthem or recite the pledge? What are you going to tell them? Some people have asked me, why are they not having food in their own schools? I don't know how to explain it to them. I confronted Lai Mohammed when he came up on this nationwide one time ago. He said it's stage by stage. Then you should have 7 children. You have the rest to wait till you finish feeding 3. Then you now continue feeding the other 4. I don't know if you understand what I'm trying to say. God bless Nigeria. We'll get it right sometime, someday. Let's not give up on this country. It shall be well with us.
Amen. Thank you so much. Thank you very much for calling. Yes, I will take response now from the Honorable Minister. Then after that, I'll take our social messages on our social media platform. Yes.
All right. Thank you very much. I think almost all the reactions or calls that we've had in relation to this program have come from parts of the country who are already aware of what the ministry has been doing. So we thank Bishop from Edo State, who did point out almost what the last point Madam made from just that there's been some disparity in the learning outcomes and abilities between the public schools and private schools. But if you listen to what he said, he also urged everybody to get on board, because the art of governance is not just one man's business. The president is the president of the Federal Republic, but everybody in Nigeria constitutes the government. And that's why he pointed out that he thinks Nigerian Union of Teachers and ANCOPS, which is the Association for Principals of Schools, should have done a little bit more as it relates to public schools, because it says that some of the disparities that they saw in the rural areas between the private institutions and public schools showed that the private institutions actually had done some more work than the public schools. And he believes that if we have more commitment to the country, that will help all of us. And that's exactly the point I have been trying to make. What we can do at the ministry is to provide guidance. What we do at the ministry is represent everybody. We were elected on the platform of a party who said we want to do this for the country. And that is, once the president was elected, he now looked for young men and women or people who will do this work. And that's how we got into the fray. So we're actually just working for Nigerian people. We're just their employees. And what we are saying is that if you have asked us to do a particular job and we bring about this guidance, kindly help us execute it everywhere. And that's the same principle around what he's saying. So if you also look at what Emmanuel spoke about from Lafia, the country is quite large. And if you look at what these learning outcomes have shown and what COVID-19 has revealed, it's some disparity in how the facilities are used everywhere. Not everybody learned at the same pace or is learning at the same pace.
Yes.
So we expect that there will be some gaps. What the e-learning platforms we've provided will do is to augment. So, and that feeds also into what Madam has just said from just as well, that if there were learning going on in these schools originally, if teachers were actually teaching children at the time, it wouldn't be such a big gap. We owe our country a responsibility to do the work that we've been assigned to do as much as we can, because we don't know what the next accident, what the next pandemic, or what the next challenge will be. It is if we had been teaching these children properly from the time we were asked to teach them, we would have gotten better results going forward.
Okay, let's talk about very quickly what Lawrence from Lagos talked about, the need to involve the stakeholders, let me say stakeholders, in decision making in the educational sector.
Well, we do that. Actually, we do that because we have what we call the National Council Education Council that meets yearly. But before it, we have preparatory joint, what we call the JCCs, and that is informed by all the states. There's none of the decisions we've taken on Zoom calls with all stakeholders. We collate commissioners of education, SUBEB chairmen from every state. We put them on a Zoom call and we ask what they have done with their own areas, and then at that, in turn, they also meet with their own proprietors at the local level, and then feed us back. And then, because we don't take a decision in a vacuum, the ministry is structured in such a way that the Honorable Minister of Education, Malam Adamu Adamu, who continuously would want us all to like have these meetings together, will then say, PAMSEC, Sonny Echono, get these people together, and then we'll all sit in with everybody around the country. The same way we talk with the governors. If the governors are holding their own meetings at the NGF, what they do is we sign in and then we can give them a feedback as to what is. So it's a stakeholder, all embracing, all Nigeria approach, because that's what even the PTF was supposed to be set up, is actually set up so I can have an all of Nigeria approach. And that's the same all of Nigeria approach to delivering education. That's what we are pursuing. That's why intermittently we are meeting with every participant, every stakeholder, every player in the industry, and taking in responses from them and collating what they have also gotten responses at the grassroots themselves.
Okay, let's hear from our social media platform now. We have here from our first contributor, Mustafa from Abuja, here in Abuja. It says, good morning, Radio Nigeria. I commend the Presidential Task Force, I believe PTF, on COVID-19, who are always on top of their game and updating the general public on a regular basis. It is worthy to note that the government did little or nothing to get our schools ready for reopening, especially the private schools and many public schools. Well, that's quite interesting. It's surprising to say. We have a lot of Nigerians did not know this about the school feeding. This is quite okay, an enlightening session. Great job. Terms from Abuja. Thank you. We have Simisola from Lagos State. It says so. There is no date when universities will resume.
I didn't say there was no date. I didn't say there was no
decisions.
Date. I said we're consulting on the matter because we can't just impose dates. There are nearly 200 universities in Nigeria, and we need to understand that some of them are private and some of them are public, and then some of them are state. In the public one, there are some that are federal, and then some are state. Because education is on the concurrent legislative list. It is important that every participant understands what their limitations are. We can't impose things on people. We can't decide for people that this is what they need to do. This is a radio program at the moment. But I assure you that we will reopen the universities at some point when we think it is safe to do so, and that the PTF is meeting on this matter continuously. That's what the issue says. Sorry, I didn't say we wouldn't review.
Okay. Let's take the next one. Ifeanyi Ungu says, student of AE Funai Ebonyi State, texting from Aba, says Chukwuemeka and Nwajiuba, what's the rationale behind reopening of markets where most of the dwellers are illiterate and can't comply? Are you sure about that with NCDC directives while schools are closed?
Well,
okay.
Really, we haven't reopened anything. What we have done is given guidance as to how people associate. Markets, you come in for a few hours and you leave. That's not the same thing as me and you living in a hostel. You are comparing apples and oranges. Let me explain. A school environment is you come, you sit down, there are classes, there are interactive modes. It's not like a market where you wave customer Hannah. This is not what this is about. They're not the same things, But the school environment is a regulated environment. The market environment is exactly what it is, a market.
So it's free for all, we can say. Okay, but it didn't stop there. He went further to say, I must commend you for always being open to hearing our views. But do remember, we need to go back to school as soon as possible.
Absolutely. If you people are out of school, I'm almost out of job. It is important that I get you back to school. I really wish to get all my children are in public schools in Nigeria, and they are home. They are overfeeding at the moment. I've told them they need to cut down. The sooner they can get back to the school, please. Even me, I'm begging you, sir. Let us get them.
They need to go out there and go back to school. Yeah. Okay. We have more messages. We have another one. He says, "Good morning. My name is It's a she now, Ms. Bimbo from Abuja. I want to thank the Honorable Minister of State, for Education, for his time today and putting the health of students as a priority. There are some secondary school buildings in terrible conditions. Is there no criteria for where learning should take place? And does the ministry not do regular inspections from time to time across the country?"
We're doing that. There are inspectors around the place, and we're shutting down some facilities that are not, which we feel are very risky. And when we feel a place is too risky for students to learn there, you just saw me on TV doing some tours around the universities and secondary schools everywhere. And each place where I get to and I think this is not correct, we shut down some of those facilities. But we're improving. We're actually helping and urging proprietors, whether they be federal, state, or to continue with the renovation effort. I run a foundation of my own, which is the Rapid Repairs Program, which I go around schools interfering. This was a foundation of my father and a few of us, and we do this from resources that are available to us privately. But we're also limited, and we urge public-spirited people to also do those kind of interventions. It's necessary. Everybody is the education ecosystem is for everybody. Everybody needs to imbibe this participatory approach to it.
That's good to know. Okay. Then we have Tumishi from Abuja. He says, I came late, but I don't know if there will be an inspection of both. Okay, we said that before. It says, will these students be tested before they resume? Thirdly, I believe it will be important to liaise with the parents in case some are or will volunteer as agents to ensure that the schools comply with the guidelines put in place during examinations. Finally, for now, we have Aminu from Kano. Aminu Adam from Kano says, I'm happy to join this program. My question is, what is the government planning with those students yet to graduate and awaiting students for admission? The schools are yet to open, while some schools are still undergoing screening